This video is sponsored by Crowdwiz, the easier and more secure way to invest in cryptocurrency. Welcome to the Xiaomi Mi Note 3, which is a hugely important smartphone because in a lot of ways it is a refined version of the Xiaomi Mi 6, which is the company's flagship smartphone for the entire 2017. It has a larger display, 5.5 inches, which is up from 5.15, and also a higher capacity battery, 3500 mAh on the Mi Note 3 versus 3350 on the Mi 6. The front camera has twice the megapixel count, and for the most part I also prefer it in terms of the aluminium accents running all the way around its sides. And bizarrely enough, it manages to do all this while still being lighter than its former smartphone. Now, aside from that aluminium trim, the entire phone is covered top to toe in glass, and this construction makes it feel no less premium than some of the very best phones out there, for example the Note 8. You'll actually notice looking at the front of the smartphone it looks almost identical to the OnePlus 5, but flipping the phones over I definitely prefer the soft matte touch finish of the OnePlus 5 compared to the shiny glossy one of this, but that is personal preference. It's super reflective and at some points can be a little bit prone to fingerprints too, but it's far from the worst I've tried. One thing worth pointing out is that whilst this isn't the slimmest or the lightest device, Xiaomi has done a very good job with the ergonomics here. The subtle curves do a pretty good job of making an otherwise very wide smartphone still comfortable to hold in a single hand. Unfortunately, within this body, like with a lot of their other smartphones, Xiaomi has no SD card support, no wireless charging capabilities, and only a very minor resistance against splashes. As well as that body, one of the most important things about this phone is the camera. And since the Xiaomi Mi 6, for better or worse, the camera has stayed more or less the same. Having said that, since the Mi 6 was released and we reviewed it, there have been a fair few software updates which have improved how it performs. Considering we have a dual 12 megapixel sensor here, the clarity on offer is pretty amazing really. It's got lots and lots of detail and also a very fast shutter time and autofocus time. The 2x loss to zoom also works just as expected, and one good thing about the smartphone camera is it allows you to get really close to objects and still focus on them. Photos have a good level of colour and contrast, and the portrait mode works almost as good as the top tier flagships. The only slight noticeable difference is the edge detection of objects is sometimes a little bit off. But one thing I did notice with both the rear and the front cameras of this phone was that they consistently overexpose. The fact that it does this on both the rear dual cameras and the front camera probably implies that this is done on purpose. The idea is that by increasing the exposure manually, what you do is hide imperfections on people's skin. Having said that, even though the 16 megapixel front camera is very detailed, the fact that it's so overexposed often makes it seem like it isn't. The battery life has been every bit as good as I thought it was going to be. The combination of a high capacity as well as super efficient up-to-date components means I was getting about 2 days of usage if I was conservative. On a more moderate level of usage it's more like 1.5 days, which is still quite a bit above average. Because this is the Chinese version of the smartphone, we're running MIUI 8 combined with Android 7.1.1, which isn't the most up-to-date package, but is still one of the best MIUI experiences I've had. As you probably know, this is a launcher packed to the brim with customization features. Everywhere you turn there's a new wallpaper, a new theme, a new animation, and whilst a lot of people don't like its childish take on aesthetics, you can't deny that it's a very fast and snappy launcher. Worth bearing in mind if you're going to buy the Chinese version, you will have to deal with a few Chinese applications, and you will also have to sideload the Play Store. Not at all deal breakers, but nonetheless still a little bit irritating. Now unfortunately, whilst the display has certainly increased in size, the same can't really be said for its quality. The resolution has stayed exactly the same, and in the process of making it larger, the screen has lost a little bit of its vibrancy. It's not quite as high in terms of colour and contrast, and also doesn't reach quite the same level of brightness. It's not a terrible display and is actually definitely a step above the budget Redmi line of smartphones, but it really pales in comparison to a lot of the competing AMOLED panels, for example. Under the hood, it's a capable smartphone. We've got Qualcomm's latest Snapdragon 660 paired with 6GB of RAM, and whilst the 660 is not on the same level as the Snapdragon 835 in terms of raw benchmarking performance, when you're flicking between applications it's really tough to tell the difference. 6GB of RAM is ample for multitasking, and gaming too is pretty much a breeze. With the 660, Qualcomm did note that they brought performance much more on par with the 800 series of chips, and you can definitely tell that's the case here. However, if all you're after is pure peak performance, then according to the benchmarks at least, the Mi 6 is about 1.5 times as capable, and that's a difference that can't be ignored. On top of that, I did actually find quite a few issues with various different applications where, without even opening, they would just instantly close again. Now hopefully that's because it's just a new chipset and they will be ironed out, but we can't say for sure. On the bright side, the fingerprint scanner is fantastic. It's fast, responsive, and you're pretty much never going to miss it. And then for the speaker, we've just got a pretty standard arrangement. There's one tucked away in the corner of the phone. It's really not very good. So there we have it, that is the Mi Note 3. And in one sense, it's everything you need. It's got a solid build, a good battery, and an even better camera, but on the other hand, you can't help but feel like there's been a little bit too much compromise compared to its slightly pricier competitors. There is nothing new to the table here since the Mi 6, and given that it's not really a cheaper phone either, it's tough to say this is really the one to go for. So as I said, this video is sponsored by CrowdWiz. Now CrowdWiz have the pre-launch of their new community-based investment platform today. Based on the concept of crowd wisdom, they're democratizing the investment process, which in other words means they use the collective opinion of a community to make investments in cryptocurrencies a little bit easier and safer. So because it's based on the opinion of the crowd, it lowers the investment risks, and it's very safe and secure because it's based off the Ethereum blockchain. You can even create your own cryptocurrency fund and invite your friends, family, and co-workers to join you and invest in it. You can find out everything you need to know at crowdwiz.io, link in the description, and if you feel like this is something you might be interested in, between today, October the 10th, and the 12th, there's a 20% bonus in token sales. So if you buy $100 worth of tokens, you actually get 120. So if that is something you're interested in, do check it out in the description. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'm Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.